The skills that got you hired are increasingly being compressed into software, not replaced overnight. Compressed, cheaper, faster, available to anyone. What that leaves is a narrower and narrower premium on something most people have never been taught to think about, let alone train. The people who understand what judgment is, really understand it, are going to have a durable advantage. The people who can only say trust your gut are going to struggle to articulate their value. And that gap will matter. There's a study that gets cited in decision research called the broken leg rule. The setup: researchers built a statistical model to predict which professors would go to the cinema on any given Friday night. They fed it patterns, past behavior, social habits, preferences. The model was good, better than most human predictions. But here's the scenario they used to test it. Suppose you tell the model that one of those professors just broke their leg. The statistical model doesn't know what to do with that. It keeps generating its prediction based on historical patterns. The professor, historically, goes to the cinema on Fridays. So it says, probably going to the cinema. Every human asked immediately says, no, obviously not. They have a broken leg. That gap between the model and the human is where judgment lives. And understanding why that gap exists is what this video is about. Judgment isn't a single thing. It's a layered process. And there are 4 components that make it up, each one harder to automate than the last. Step 1. Noticing what's relevant. Before you can make a good decision, you have to identify which information matters. This sounds obvious, but it's extraordinarily hard. In any real-world situation, you're surrounded by signals. Most of them are noise. A few of them are load-bearing. They actually determine the right course of action. Judgment starts with the ability to notice which is which. Here's the key point. The broken leg in that study was outside the model's data distribution. The model had never seen it, so it couldn't flag it as significant. A human looks at the situation and immediately restructures what matters. That restructuring, recognizing that a new variable changes everything, is the first layer of judgment. AI systems work inside their training distribution. They're excellent at recognizing patterns they've seen before. What they struggle with is the moment when the pattern breaks, and something that looks like noise is actually a signal that requires you to throw out everything you thought you knew. Step 2. Knowing what frame to apply. Once you've noticed what's relevant, you have to choose how to think about it. This is what people mean when they say mental models, but it goes deeper than having a collection of frameworks. Real situations are almost never cleanly one type of problem. They're hybrid. They're ambiguous. And the frame you choose, whether you treat something as a negotiation or a collaboration, as a risk management problem or a creative problem, as an ethical question or a technical one, largely determines the answer you'll arrive at. Experienced professionals don't just have more frameworks. They're better at choosing which one applies. And more importantly, they know when to switch midway through, when their initial framing was wrong. This is something AI systems find genuinely difficult. A language model asked to solve a problem will pick a frame early and work within it. It requires careful prompting to get it to challenge its own frame. Humans with developed judgment do this automatically. Step 3. Operating under incomplete information. Most real decisions don't give you what you need. You have partial information, time pressure, and you have to act anyway. This is where judgment becomes almost physical. It's the ability to calibrate how much uncertainty you're actually carrying, separate from how much uncertainty feels present. These two things diverge. Anxiety makes uncertainty feel higher than it is. Overconfidence makes it feel lower. Experienced judgment means having an accurate internal read on what you actually know versus what you're assuming. Think of a doctor in an emergency room. They're constantly updating. They're running mental experiments. If this were X, would I expect to see Y? If this is Z, what am I missing? They're not waiting for certainty. They're managing a dynamic, probabilistic picture of the situation. AI can help process information faster, It can surface patterns the human might miss. But the felt calibration, knowing what you don't know and moving anyway, that remains deeply human. Step 4. Weighting values that are in tension. This is the deepest layer, and it's the one that's most clearly not a technical problem. Almost every genuinely hard decision involves competing goods. Not good versus bad, that's usually easy. It's good versus good, or harm versus harm, where the real difficulty lives. Do you tell your client the truth in a way that damages the relationship, or do you soften it in a way that risks misleading them? Do you move fast and break things, or do you slow down and protect the people who depend on stability? Do you optimize for the person in front of you, or the system that person is part of? These are value trade-offs, and how you navigate them isn't a calculation. It's an expression of what you believe matters, weighted against context, relationships, consequences, and time horizon. You can ask an AI to help you think through that. It can surface the trade-offs clearly, but the weighing, the actual determination of what matters more, that has to come from somewhere. From experience, from character, from a person willing to be accountable for the outcome. Now that you understand the 4 layers, noticing, framing, calibrating, and weighing, here's why that matters for how you think about your career. Think about 2 people, both in similar roles, 5 years from now. The first person has gotten very good at using AI tools. They're faster. They produce more. They've automated a lot of what used to take them hours. But when something genuinely novel arrives, a situation that doesn't fit a pattern, a decision that requires choosing between values in tension, they outsource that too. They ask the model. They accept the output. They've become, in a real sense, a skilled executor of AI-generated thinking. The second person has done something different. They've used AI to handle the routine, but they've invested that freed-up time in something harder, building their own judgment. They've taken on decisions that made them uncomfortable. They've been wrong and understood why. They've trained their pattern recognition not on tasks, but on situations, human situations, with all their ambiguity and consequence. When something genuinely novel arrives, the second person doesn't reach for the model first. They bring their own assessment. They know what frame applies. They can hold the uncertainty without freezing. And when the values are in conflict, they can make a call and stand behind it. That person is not replaceable. Not because they're hostile to tools, but because the thing they've built is not a task skill. It's a thinking skill. And those compound. So here's the one thing to take from this. Judgment develops through exposure to consequences under uncertainty. There is no other way. Reading about decision-making helps. Studying cases helps. But neither of those builds judgment the way actual decisions do. Decisions where you had incomplete information, where you had something at stake, where you had to hold the discomfort of not knowing and move anyway. The practical implication is this. If AI is handling more and more of your routine cognitive work, which it is, you need to be deliberate about what you do with the space that creates. The dangerous path is to get more comfortable, to let the harder, more ambiguous decisions be handled by tools or by more senior people, to stay in your lane and optimize. The better path is to seek out decisions, to ask for more exposure to situations where there is no clean answer, to debrief your calls, not just whether they worked, but why you framed it the way you did, what you missed, what you'd weight differently next time. Judgment is built through reps, but only if you're paying attention. We started with a question. What actually is judgment? Here's the answer, compressed into one sentence. Judgment is the ability to identify what matters in a situation, choose the right frame, act well under incomplete information, and navigate competing values. And it develops only through consequential experience, which is exactly why it can't be packaged into a system. That's why it matters. That's why it compounds. And that's why the people investing in it now will be in a fundamentally different position than the people who aren't. But there's a connected question this video doesn't answer. If judgment is built through exposure to consequential decisions, what happens when AI starts pre-filtering which decisions reach you at all? When the systems around you are handling more and more of the triage, more of the early sorting, more of the signal from noise work, do you still get the reps you need? That's a different problem, and it's one worth thinking carefully about.